So, I've now had a chance to test out all of the new variants of the new level 10 weapons over in the Battlefield 1 CTE. A chance to get a feel for them, how they fit in, and whether they're really worth the grind of 300 kills and 25 gadget kills to unlock them. I'll say from the outset, some feel better than others, but each of them do offer a sizable change from their base variants. Let's start with the Riegel 1915 Defensive. No doubt its standout feature is the massive 120 round drum magazine equipped with 120 rounds in reserve. That gives it more ammunition than some of the LMGs in the support class. And this led many people to actually say in the comments of my last video that they didn't understand why it hadn't been added to the support class. But there you go, it's with the assault, and I think it's there for a fairly good reason. Firstly, it's still the Riegel, so you can expect a medium rate of fire and a fairly good controllability at close ranges, so it sits nicely in that SMG range that DICE has created in Battlefield 1. But where those 120 rounds come in handy is when you have it deployed with its brand new bipod. This thing becomes extremely accurate, even at medium to long range once deployed, and in certain situations, it can be very, very helpful. I'm sure there have been plenty of times where you've been shot at from a distance, but you know you haven't got a hope in hell of taking that player down just because they're too far off and you've got a weapon like an SMG that won't reach out to that range. Well, very much like the brand new Riegel 1918 that was added with the They Shall Not Pass DLC, this defensive Riegel gives you that extra range to at least be able to compete with other players now. Weapons designed to operate at those ranges like LMGs and the medic rifles are still likely to have the advantage, but at least you can land a few shots and maybe force that player to take some cover. That gives you some time to move on up and maybe close the gap, putting you in the driver's seat with your SMG. Another thing I'll mention too, the defensive comes with an optical sight, which I prefer massively over the iron sights on the factory variant. It really clears things up when you're aiming down the sight, and I found it much easier overall to use this thing while in ADS. One pitfall of the Riegel defensive though is the weapon handling whilst you're on the move, essentially using it as a standard SMG. Because this new variant is designed to be used more cautiously, that's what the bipod's for, you'll find that controlling recoil in standard gunfights will be a little bit harder than it is on the factory variant, and as the range increases, your target will become much harder to hit. At those kind of ranges though, it's best that you simply deploy the bipod and let rip with the bullets. You'll stand a much better chance of winning the gunfight, or at least doing some significant damage before you're eventually killed. This new Riegel variant, I'd say, is 100% worth the grind to unlock it. You get 3 benefits over the original variant with 1 drawback. Seems like a bit of a no-brainer to me. The second new weapon that we're going to look at is in the Scout class. It's the Martini Henry Sniper. This is the new variant that I thought would be most controversial, seeing as the weapon isn't directly suited to longer range shooting. The Martini's sweet spot is between 30 and 80 meters. That's where you'll be doing the maximum 100 damage. And that's likely to be a little bit too close if you're using a proper sniper rifle scope. But I gave it a shot anyway to see how it fared, and to be honest, it wasn't too bad. I ended up using the scope more as a target acquisition tool instead of a real optic for headshot hunting, and I was spotting way more players because of that. The spot assist points were rolling in like there was no tomorrow, and killing a few players with the scope was very satisfying. But I can't help but feel the Martini would be better if it had a marksman scope on it, instead of the high-powered sniper scope, very much like the SMLE and the Gewehr M95 do. Having an optic for the Martini Henry would be a massive improvement overall, but I feel like DICE went and added the wrong type of scope. Or maybe that was intentional. Would the Martini Henry be almost too powerful with a low-powered scope and that 100 damage sweet spot at close range? I mean, the SMLE has that kind of feature, and everyone seems to use that weapon, so maybe DICE were keen to avoid another situation like that. You've still got the balancing feature of it only being able to fire one round before you need to reload it, but if you're used to using the normal Martini, then you'll deal with that just fine here. I'll say this weapon is worth grinding for. I really enjoyed using it, but it's only really useful if you're prepared to play the Scout class a little bit more passively. Engaging targets through the scope doesn't feel as awesome as it does when you're taking people down with the iron sights, Martini Henry, but you really can help out your team by spotting lots of enemies with this weapon. Third gun of the 4 that we have here, the Hewett Automatic Optical, and this is the new variant coming to the support class. Now, the original variant of this gun is already extremely accurate, but you need to know how to use it. You have to be committed to either standing still or using its bipod propped up against some cover. Its low rate of fire means that you really need to be positioned correctly or get your movement right to win gunfights against other players, especially when you're coming up against assault players who have got far better SMGs than what you've got in an LMG. But the meta gets changed up here with this new variant. We get a lovely new optical sight on the weapon, that's far nicer than the iron sights, and we get a foregrip as well, which helps to manage the overall handling of the weapon. The result is a gun that's far more competitive in gunfights when on foot with other players, but you're still held back a little bit by the slow rate of fire. It means you still need to be smart with your positioning and your movement, making sure that you always keep the upper hand when it comes into gunfights, especially, as I said, against those assault players. SMGs and shotguns at close ranges are still going to beat you 9 times out of 10. This gun is worth the grind as it replaces some of the accuracy attributes of the original with a little bit more mobility, but still retaining some of that accuracy at the same time. In Battlefield 1, if you want to aim down sights, the Hewett is a really good weapon to use. And the final weapon, the Selbstlader 1906 Sniper, coming to the Medic class. I've got similar feelings when using this weapon to when I was using the Martini Sniper, in the same way that I felt I needed to play the class a little bit more passively because the weapon almost stopped me from playing the class the way I'd normally play. Because the 1906 only has 5 rounds in its magazine, before you have to reload it, you can't go balls deep and get stuck in with the close quarters action. You need to spend more time reloading than you are firing bullets if that were the case. So I stuck to the edges of the play zone a little bit more and used that powerful high optic scope to pick off players from a distance. If I could land a headshot at range, then there was a chance I'd be able to finish somebody off with a follow-up shot. This is a 3-shot kill to the body, this weapon, and you've only got 5 rounds in a magazine. But more often than not, I was actually picking off half-health enemies who'd been damaged by teammates, which adds more of an emphasis onto that passive role that I was talking about. The sight allows you to spot players off in the distance as well. That's the same effect that you have with the Martini Sniper, so that helped out players who were closer in, knowing where those enemies were. I did have some clutch moments where I'd pull off like a 1-2 tap headshot move, 2 headshots in a row and taking them down really, really quickly. And in that respect, I'd have to say, of all the new weapons, this one still feels like a skill cannon. The other 3, although they're more useful than their originals, they do bring them into line with the other weapons in the game. They start to feel very similar to the setup that DICE have got with the other weapons so far. The level 10 weapons before that did feel very different, very unique. This one, the Selbstlader 1906 Sniper, one of the 4 new level 10 weapon variants, still feels like a unique weapon in its own right. The rest of them are kind of blurring the lines back in towards normal weapons. All 4 of these new weapons offer a change up from their originals, and depending on your playstyle, you're likely to favour one over the others. For me, if I had to rank them, I'd say the Martini probably comes in 4th. I didn't enjoy using that as much as I thought I would. The Selbstlader in 3rd, the Hewett in 2nd, and the trusty old Riegel taking the top spot. Let me know what you think about these down below in the comments section. Have you had a chance to try them in the CTE? If you haven't, which one looks most appealing to you so far. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.